Good evening, everyone. Tonight we are standing in a living room that still smells like old lemon oil and the last bouquet, where the mantel clock clicks softly as if it's counting somebody else's money, and a stack of legal folders waits on the coffee table like obedient gray pigeons. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I like seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe let a fan hum in the background. And let's begin tonight's journey together. I may. One day before the division of assets, such a cold phrase for a life you once shelved together, my daughter-in-law, Rhea, came to the door with a smile that had rehearsed itself. My son, Colt, stood a step behind her, hands tucked into the pockets of a jacket that used to fit optimism better. Outside, the sky was the color of a receipt that's been in a warm pocket too long. Inside, the house held its breath the way an old friend does when company starts talking in the voice of a pamphlet. Here's what's going to happen, Rhea said, like she'd invented calendars. Tomorrow, we'll make sure everything is transferred the right way, and after that, May. You'll move into a community where you can be looked after. It'll be good for you. Activities. She delivered activities with the pep of a cruise director. Light joke 1. I pictured a flyer, chair yoga for people who didn't ask, bingo with boundaries. Colt's eyes wouldn't choose a spot to land. He stared at the umbrella stand, the baseboard, the corner where the cat used to nap. Mom, he said quietly, it's just easier if we streamline. The word hung between us like a wrinkle someone was hoping the iron of authority would smooth out. I poured water, not to be sweet, but to mark that this house still has rituals that are not for sale. You said, transferred the right way, I said. But I didn't hear, to whom? Rhea's smile brightened the way ring lights brighten, evenly, indiscriminately. To us, of course, she said. We're consolidating. Your name complicates things, and we're trying to protect you, and the baby. She smoothed the line of her blouse. A small advertisement for future leverage. Elder wisdom. When a threat borrows the grammar of a favor, don't debate tone, ask for nouns. Who, when, where, and under what clause. Paper likes nouns, so do judges. I set the 2 glasses on the coffee table, deliberately far from the folder stack, the way you keep tea away from a keyboard. I will not be signing tonight, I said, voice steady enough to hang a picture from. Tomorrow has a lawyer in it, and I respect calendars the way you respect cameras. Colt made the sound an old couch makes when it gives up on pretending to be firm. Rhea, he said gently, but she was already moving to the next stair on her script. You could make this elegant, she said. Sign the deed. We'll ensure a generous monthly allowance. Discretion? No need to involve outsiders. The pause before outsiders had claws. Light joke 2. The ice maker in the kitchen chose that moment to clatter like a band that forgot sound check. It turns out appliances don't honor dramatic lighting. Tomorrow, I said again. Not tonight. Rhea tilted her head as if listening closely to a song only she could hear, and then lowered her voice until it wore silk. If you don't cooperate, I'll have to be honest about Colt's habits, she said, finding a word that could pass a breathalyzer. People will find out? Colt flinched, which is how the truth sometimes raises its hand. I looked at my son and saw him at 8, face sticky with popsicle courage, whispering I did it without dying. The scaffolding of that sentence had once held a whole boy. Let's use the dining table, I said, because chairs are mercy in weather. We sat, and I placed a pen beside each of them, not for signatures, for fidgeting. It's magic, the way a pen can keep fingers from picking at a person. Rhea set down a pre-printed care plan with a photo of a corridor so shiny it looked edible. "It's time," she said, "to be practical." I glanced up at the clock, 1 minute after the hour, which is when a plan either breathes or starts performing CPR on the air. Academic phrase of the day: moral hazard, the public argument that when people are protected from consequences, they take bigger risks. In families, it sounds like, "We can use your house as a bridge. You'll be fine." The antidote is limits you can point at: laws, locks, ledgers, and the unglamorous word no. "Who told you tomorrow would be easy?" I asked. Ria blinked like a cat who just discovered glass. "Your husband's paperwork is old," she said breezily. Old is a word young people use when they haven't met winter. Colt swallowed. "Mom, maybe Ria can talk to your attorney," he offered, a white flag made from a napkin. "My attorney talks to me," I said. "That's the relationship." Quirky fact. Sidebar: the blue-gray crosshatch printed "Morning" wore courtroom gray and seemed pleased about it. I brewed coffee that could carry verbs, put the stack of obedient gray folders back on the table, and called Harlan Pierce, my attorney with the voice of a hallway that ends in a door that shuts properly. "Don't straighten the house," he said. "We'll bring our own neatness." At 9, he arrived with his paralegal, Ivy Tran, clipboard, calm, shoes that don't squeak when truth is walking, and a small fireproof pouch. "Your husband left an envelope in our firm's safe," Harlan said, resting a palm on the pouch like a blessing that doesn't need to raise its voice. "Sealed. To be opened if you were pressured about housing or placement." His word. We sat at the dining table where chairs make courage transferable. I slid the envelope with my old letter opener, the one shaped like a sardine, because Richard believed seriousness needs a chaperone. Out slid a thumb drive, a brass key, and a single page written in Richard's square. Engineerly hand. "May, if someone tells you what your life should look like, play this. Call Harlan. Say anchor. He will say harbor if he doesn't. Hang up and eat." Harlan looked amused and a little honored. "Anchor," I said. "Harbor," he answered, smiling. Ivy plugged in the drive. Richard appeared on the laptop wearing a navy sweater that made him look like an honest Wednesday. "If you're watching this," he said, "someone tried to move you like furniture. We planned for that. The trust includes a mistreatment clause, coercion about housing, threats of placement, or attempts to force a deed transfer trigger a reversion of control to you. Harlan will file. Ivy will bring the list. Colt, if it's you, son, take a breath and let paper save you from your panic." He cleared his throat the way he used to when he was about to say something that would age well. "May, give the house rules to the porch. Read them like scripture. Sleep before yes." The video ended with Richard patting the camera like it was a shoulder. Ivy slid a checklist toward me, her handwriting a friendly grid. Temporary orders, bank notifications, utility locks, supervised retrieval protocol, non-disparagement related to charitable funds, she said. Like someone naming ingredients for a soup that keeps. Elder wisdom: when you're tempted to solve a crisis with a grand gesture, solve it with 10 small chores written where your hands already go. Grandness is overrated. Repetition saves lives. We began with the practical magic. Ivy called the clerk for an emergency slot. Harlan typed with the speed of a pianist who loves scales. Declaration, exhibit list, proposed order. I read each page out loud so my mouth could practice the verbs: enjoin, revert, preserve, restrain, light joke 1. The printer made an indignant honk on the first thick packet. Ivy patted it like a misbehaving swan, and it immediately purred. Colt texted twice. "Can we stop by to discuss? Ria says it's time sensitive." And I typed a single sentence back. "All proposals to council. Porch is open at noon for water and 10 minutes. Ria replied with a lemon emoji, which is what people send when they think garnish can fix soup that forgot salt. Before noon, locks, Harlan said, and produced a locksmith card that read quiet work. The locksmith arrived at 10:58 in a sweatshirt that matched the card and a canvas bag that sounded like honesty when it moved. He replaced 2 cylinders and the back deadbolt while Ivy filmed each click for the file. Different key for each, he said. No duplicates until you like somebody on a weekday. Light joke too. When the new latch clicked, he whispered, tenor, not soprano. And the door seemed relieved. Academic phrase of the day, commitment device. The public argument that you limit your future choices to help your later self keep promises. The porch card is one. So is a changed lock. So is telling the judge your plan before your fear writes a worse one. At noon, we opened the porch, chain on, water poured. I had taped a card beside the bell. Porch rules, daylight only. Chain stays, water poured. 10 minutes per visit. Everything in writing to counsel. No signatures after 4 p.m. Sleep before yes. Colt arrived with shoulders that remembered how to be humble. Rhea arrived with sunglasses that remembered how to be content. I kept the chain on because the chain and I are co-authors now. We can avoid unpleasantness, Rhea began, smile performing Pilates. Sign a temporary deed so we can do a bridge loan. Academic phrase encore, I said gently. Bridge is a word that thinks it's a favor. We'll cross on receipts. I passed 2 glasses of water through the gap and set the kitchen timer where all could see. 10 minutes. Your husband's paperwork is old. Rhea tried again. Ivy's eyebrows, behind me, did competent math. The clause is current, Ivy said. You triggered it yesterday, Harlan added, very quietly. All offers to counsel, please leave a business card. Rhea exhaled, sharp as a stapler. We'll ruin Colt if you do this, she said, almost sweet. Colt flinched in the key of 8 years old. No, I answered. You won't. I looked at my son and gave him the sentence scaffold he used to practice. I did it. He swallowed, then nodded, small but visible. The timer, the dignified goose, honked its little truth. Visit over, light joke 3, the terrier next door, sweater patterned like a bar graph, gave a single approving bark as if to say the audit passed. Back inside, Harlan filed, Ivy scanned. The locksmith handed me a small paper envelope with labeled keys, front, back, deadbolt, and a receipt whose font looked like it paid its bills on time. I put the envelope in a dish shaped like an anchor because Richard loved jokes that steady. And I taped a second card inside the cupboard. House rules. Paper before talking. Tea before emails. Proof before panic. No tonight. Sleep before yes. Quirky fact. Sidebar. That blue-gray crosshatch you see inside envelopes is a security tint. It defeats candling, the old trick of holding mail to the light to read the contents. Privacy is often just inconvenience, engineered. By 2. The clerk called. Emergency hearing at 4. We'll keep it boring on purpose, Harlan said. And that sounded like a lullaby. He rehearsed my lines. I relied on counsel and the documents my husband prepared. I prefer to keep the record about paper. Yes, Your Honor. That last one is a whole survival kit. We ate soup while the printer cooled its emotions. I salted to the corners because attention is a seasoning. Ivy went over the supervised retrieval protocol, a deputy present, 2 boxes of clothing only, no electronics, no heirlooms, 1 path from guest room to door, 10 minutes per pass, eyebrows may be used to enforce lanes. Deputies are very good at lanes, she said, amused. We'll schedule for tomorrow if needed. At 3. Harlan's phone buzzed. Bank freeze confirmed, he said. Utility accounts in your name and locked. The scholarship fund continues on schedule. We've added a non-disparagement clause to keep its name out of anyone's content. Content, I have learned, is the word people use when gossip wants a job. We walk to court like people who prefer nouns. Judge Albright runs a calendar that respects afternoons. The clerk called our case. We stood. Harlan put words where drawers belong, mistreatment trigger invoked, conditions enumerated, corroboration attached, relief requested, freeze, reversion of control, supervised retrieval, health directive enforcement, non-disparagement. He placed Richard's video transcript on the rail and let quiet carry its share. Ria's attorney, hired at speed, tried to sell misunderstood concern. Judge Albright looked at the transcript, underlined something only the bench can see, and said, "Care is not coercion, orders as requested. Pen music, stamp metronome, boring, beautiful. Elder wisdom. Second serving. You don't have to win the room when the room has a system. You just have to show up with paper that fits the slots the system already built." Outside, the sky lightened by 1 honest inch. I thanked Harlan and Ivy with water because gratitude should fit in a glass. "We'll finalize in the morning," he said. "Tonight you rest, and your porch keeps its job." I walked home with the new keys in my pocket and the chain's friendly future in my hand. Back in the kitchen. The banker's lamp put green where work belongs and softened everything else. I set the court order under that green like a small altar to verbs: enjoined, preserved, restrained, enforced. I wrote another card for the cupboard. Tonight, locks done. Paper filed. Porch closed at dusk. Garden, rosemary, breathe, mercy, after nouns. Sleep before yes. The cat, who has been promoted to head of optics, hopped onto the chair and sat facing the door like a theater manager who knows how to end shows on time. I opened the back door and let the rosemary remind me how the sun writes its letters. The chain slid into its groove with that small, competent side doors make when they believe you again. By the time the lamp clicked its gentle period, the house had stopped auditioning for disaster and returned to its specialty, holding. And I lay down with Richard's voice still working like a lighthouse does, present tense. Steady arc, a schedule more than a sermon. Morning arrived with the hush of a library opening its blinds, dust motes unbothered, pages ready. I set the court order under the banker's lamp so its green could crown the verbs: enjoined, preserved, restrained, enforced, and brewed coffee strong enough to escort a plan. Harlan texted at 7:58. Orders docketed. Banking notices sent. Deputy scheduled for 10 to supervise retrieval. Ivy added a thumbs up and a checklist emoji. She has learned to speak fluent list. I taped the porch card a little straighter, because straight feels like a spell, and walked the yard once to ask the rosemary to say something encouraging in its quiet language. The gate clicked its decent syllable. The chain, inside, practiced the slide we both trust. I put water glasses on a tray, visible timer beside them, and laid a clipboard on the console table for porch minutes: who, when, what, and the single sentence that matters. At 9, emails began their civilized march. The boutique where Ria had bought final sale gowns on a card that belonged to the trust wrote, "We do not normally refund," and then, after Harlan's attachment, "We will make an exception immediately." The dealership whose brochure had kept my junk drawer glossy apologized for miscommunication and reversed their hold. A jeweler sent an aria about store credit until Ivy replied with exactly 4 citations. Moments later, they discovered how to spell refund. Light joke 1, my printer, who has recently chosen reform, printed each confirmation without a single groan and then made a small beep like modest confetti. Elder wisdom: when a bad plan, learn to sprint. Answer with a routine that refuses to run: paper, water, chairs, timers. A routine is a promise the body can keep when the heart wants to grandstand. At 10 on the nose. The deputy stepped onto the porch with a clipboard and the patience of a bus schedule. "We'll do 2 passes," he said. Clothing only, 2 boxes, no electronics, no heirlooms, lanes enforced. His eyebrows did a demo that made lanes unnecessary as a noun. I opened the door to the chain's limit and passed him a glass. Colt and Rhea arrived moments later, he carrying boxes, she carrying a smile that had practiced in front of a ring light. The deputy read the rules out loud like a shipping manifest. We proceeded. Inside. The guest room had already been edited to kindness. Ivy and I had laid a path with blue painter's tape, so even the arguments would have to walk in a straight line. Rhea tried to glance at the study. The deputy's eyebrows signaled lane violation, and she returned to hangers. Colt lifted a box that said shoes in a hand, trying on honesty again. "Thank you for the water," he said without looking at me, which counted. 10 minutes, the deputy said, checking the timer on my stove, the dignified goose that honks like it means due process. Light joke too, when it honked at exactly 10. The terrier next door barked once, as if the audit committee had accepted the minutes. We signed the deputy's page for the first pass, and the porch card remained unruffled. Academic phrase of the day: procedural justice. The public argument that people accept outcomes more peacefully when steps feel fair, consistent, and explained. In practice, that's the deputy reading rules, the goose honking at 10, and me pouring water even for people planning to make content out of my hallway, in the lull between passes. Harlan called with the noon brief. Utilities locked, health directive uploaded to the registry, non-disparagement attached to the scholarship fund. If anyone tries to wrap gossip around charity, the clause snaps. I pictured the clause snapping like a tidy binder clip and felt my pulse practice the metronome of relief. Quirky fact. Sidebar. Binder clips were invented in 1910 by a man trying to keep his writer father's pages together. The spring steel has memory. Open, hold, release, without losing grip. I like tools that admit they're temporary and still do their job perfectly. Paper wishes more people behaved like binder clips. Pass 2 finished without detours. The deputy initialed. Colt murmured thanks in a key that remembered 8 years old. And Rhea adjusted her sunglasses like optics were oxygen. At the threshold, she tried one last turn. "We could avoid all this," she said, with a simple temporary deed. The deputy cleared his throat in the language of no. "All proposals to council," I said, and handed her a business envelope that contained precisely that sentence, printed twice. The chain slid home. The lock answered with its small tenor click. The house and I exhaled together, not triumph, just oxygen sorted. I wrote porch minutes while the syllables were still warm. Who, what, time in, time out, lane attempt, block enforced, sentence offered, sentence declined. Ivy scanned the page to Harlan and labeled the file weather, calm. We ate soup because soup persuades the nervous system better than speeches. I salted to the corners and reminded myself that attention is a spice. At 1. The community board birthed a post that used the phrase family dynamics, like a lab coat. 2 steady commenters arrived with their secular hymns, dates, names, and the thread stumbled into silence. Priscilla from town messaged me a screenshot of her own restraint. "I'm practicing the show documents diet." I sent her the lemon bar recipe annotated, "cut smaller than pride," which is how we say, "You're doing swell here." Rowan, no. Harlan, I keep my lawyers separate the way I keep spices labeled. Texted. Hearing set Friday to finalize. Keep porch boring. Boring has become my favorite adjective. I folded laundry with the reverence of a monk and put the court order back beneath the banker's lamp, which throws light only where work happens and lets the edges soften. If a theology can be green glass and brass, this is mine. Mid-afternoon. A courier slid a glossy envelope under the door. Victor Hale, I recognized the kind of font that moisturizes its consonants, offered a bridge deed to unlock liquidity while preserving dignity. If dignity were a creature, it would like a word with that sentence. Harlan told me to drop it in ammunition, paper. Light joke 3, the cat, who has been promoted to head of optics, sat on the envelope like a courthouse statue and yawned in legal. I called Colt at 4 with a single request. "Bring me a receipt for your meeting tonight," he said. "Yes, ma'am," in a voice that had stopped auditioning for cool. At 6, he texted the photo, folding chairs, sneakers, a coffee urn. Seated, 1. He wrote himself, taking ownership of the parentheses. I printed it because paper helps nerves believe what eyes already know. At dusk. I walked the fence line and counted the rails like commas in a sentence that finally knows when to stop. The rosemary breathed the sun back to me from under its tiny oil pockets. I penciled a small list on a card and taped it inside the cupboard where my hands already go. Tonight, file receipts. Tea before emails. No replies after 7. Read your name out loud. Sleep before yes. The phone pulsed once more. Rhea, sugared tone. We can craft a narrative of unity. I answered with weather. Court orders attached. Porch rules attached. Offers to counsel. I put the phone face down, not as a performance, but as gravity. Before bed. I laid the locksmith's little envelope of keys in the dish shaped like an anchor, Richard's private joke, and touched the brass like it might touch back. His video still hummed somewhere inside the walls, not as a ghost, but as a lighthouse, light on a schedule, unbothered by who notices. I turned off the lamp and let the click sound like a period placed where it belongs. The chain settled into its groove with its soft competence. The heater breathed in the key of mercy. And in the dark that followed, I built tomorrow the way I built safety now, by listing it. Call Harlan at 9, finalize retrieval inventory, read the judge's verbs out loud once for courage. Water the rosemary. And remember that quiet is not surrender. Quiet is what competence sounds like when it gets its way. Friday put on a jacket that fit, the kind with pockets big enough for pens and the small calm you take out in hallways. I set the court order under the banker's lamp so the green could bless the verbs again: enjoined, preserved, restrained, enforced, and brewed coffee that could carry a courthouse without spilling. Harlan texted at 8:12. Finalization at 11 o'clock. Bring nothing theatrical. Ivy added. Tabs in rainbow, but boring content. She sent a photo of the binder. Even the tabs looked like they understood inside voices. Before we left, I walked the yard once and told the rosemary what I wanted from the day. Steadiness, not spectacle. The gate offered its single honest syllable. Click, like a modest friend who never arrives empty-handed. Inside, I straightened the porch card, daylight only, chain stays, water poured, 10 minutes. Everything in writing, and put 2 clean glasses next to the visible timer. You don't prepare for storms anymore, I told myself. You prepare for schedules. Harlan drove. Ivy rode shotgun, scrolling through confirmations like a conductor counting carriages. We passed the boutique where Final Sale had learned the word refund and the dealership whose brochure had returned to the junk drawer in shame. Ivy said, Jewelers capitulated at 7:41 a.m. with an email that starts, as a courtesy, which is legal for you caught us. Light joke 1. Our printer at home sent me a push notification. Job complete. With the pride of a toaster that has learned restraint. I sent back a silent thank you because we are limiting applause to useful places. Judge Albright's courtroom has the crisp dignity of a well-folded napkin, designed to be helpful, not admired. We waited while the clerk worked the morning's metronome. Across the aisle. Rhea sat with a lawyer whose tie tried too hard and a leather folio that moisturized its consonants. Colt hovered a seat back, eyes steady in a way I wanted to hire. The clerk called our case. The room adjusted its posture. Harlan did not perform. He filed. Mistreatment trigger invoked, he said. Conditions enumerated: coercion regarding housing, threats of placement, attempts at deed transfer, corroboration attached, porch minutes, locksmith receipts, merchant reversals, video from the decedent, relief requested, continuation of freeze, reversion of discretionary control, supervised retrieval schedule, health directive enforcement, and non-disparagement regarding the scholarship fund. He slid tabs forward like a man laying track. Ria's counsel tried the word misunderstanding as if it were a bandage you can apply to a contract. Judge Albright read Richard's line about being moved like furniture and underlined something only the bench can see. Care is not coercion, he repeated from yesterday, a phrase that belongs on the good kind of bumper sticker. Orders granted as requested. Non-disparagement added. Any proposed temporary deed arrangements are enjoined. Pen music, stamp percussion, case law's lullaby. Elder wisdom. When a system is fair. You don't need to shout, you just have to hand it the right nouns in the right order and let gravity finish the sentence. Outside. The sky brightened by exactly 1 working inch. Ivy texted copies to herself. To me, to the part of the cloud that never loses things, Harlan said. We'll send the merchant quota and file the deputy schedule. Go home. Let the porch be a policy, not a performance. We shook hands like people who prefer verbs. Back at the house. I set the stamped order under the green glass again and read the verbs aloud because hearing the law sing helps it root. Continues, reverts, enjoins, enforces. The thermostat announced holding steady like a junior attorney passing the bar. Light joke 2. The smart fridge gently flashed, party mode available. I told it today's party favors were paper clips and it dimmed. Chastened but supportive. The first attempted narrative arrived at 1:03. A text from a PR person who did not introduce themselves properly. We're producing a restorative conversation about aging with grace, it said. Featuring you and your daughter-in-law, moderated by a licensed empathy coach. I replied with the weather, orders attached, porch rules attached, no filming. All offers to counsel, and put the phone face down. We have learned not to argue with clouds that don't carry water. Academic phrase of the day. Reputational cascade. The public argument that people copy perceived beliefs of others instead of checking facts, leading to herd judgments. The antidote is a system that requires exhibits, dates, names, filings. 2 steady replies, dates, names, have become this town's better immune response. At 2, the deputy texted, supervised pickup window 3:30, 2 boxes, clothing only. I set out the glasses and the dignified goose. Colt came on time with quiet shoes. Ria arrived with a smile that thought it was a shield. The deputy read the rules again because fairness likes ritual. They stayed in their lane. 10 minutes honked like truth. As they left, Ria tried one more door. We can get you a generous stipend, she said, for agreeing not to escalate. We're de-escalating, I answered. It's just louder than you expected. The deputy's eyebrows signed off like a notary. Quirky fact. Sidebar, those little embossed notary seals don't use ink. They crimp the paper so the truth survives floods and photocopies. I like documentation that has teeth but doesn't bite unless asked. At 4. A courier slid a glossy envelope under the door. Victor Hale again. Branding still moisturized. Temporary deed to unlock liquidity while preserving dignity. It sang. I filed it in ammunition, paper, and fed the cat, who sat on the envelope like a courthouse statue. Harlan's email arrived seconds later. Cease and desist to Mr. Hale's office sent. Lender board CC'd. You do nothing. The community board tried one last rumor with the phrase, family dynamics, in a lab coat. 2 steady voices, dates, names, and the thread folded itself back into the drawer. Priscilla from town messaged, "If gossip knocks on my group chat, I'm going to ask for documents and then send lemon bars cut smaller than pride." I sent her a green checkmark and the word practicing. Ethan, no, Colt. This story keeps my son separate the way kitchens keep salt and sugar labeled. Texted a photo of the folding chairs. Seated, too, he wrote, and added. They made me say out loud, "I don't do urgency anymore." I printed it, because heat-fixed ink sometimes persuades nerves better than pixels. Light Joke 3, the printer, committed to its redemption arc, produced the sheet without a groan and then made a shy beep, like confetti with a library card. Evening asked for soup. Ivy stopped by to drop the merchant coda, and we ate beans with lemon while the banker's lamp pooled green where our spoons needed it. "Tomorrow," she said. "We'll finalize the schedule. No signatures after 4. Porch closed on Sundays. Supervised pickups, if any remain, and a standing rule. Mercy after nouns." I taped that last phrase to the cupboard because commandments only work if they live where hands already go. I wrote my porch minutes with the precision of a nurse. Who, what, when, and the sentence that mattered. I scanned them to Harlan and labeled the file, "Weather, calm, Friday." The cat, head of optics, approved the angles with a blink. Then, because progress here wears errands. I did the tiny things that keep the room honest. Set out tomorrow's cards, bank, paid, utilities, locked. Deputy, signed. Tightened the gate hinge 1/4 turn, watered the rosemary so the night would remember the sun. I ironed 2 pillowcases. Because smooth cotton convinces anxiety to put its fists down. I laid the new key envelope back in the dish, shaped like an anchor, Richard's steady joke, and touched the brass that touches back by refusing to budge. Elder wisdom. Second serving. A life stabilized is not a triumph, it's a schedule. Locks first, water next, paper filed, garden checked, soup salted to the corners, and mercy postponed until the nouns have finished their shift. Before bed. I wrote the next card for the cupboard. Weekend rules. No tonight. No bridge. Porch closed Sunday. 10 minutes only. Timer visible. Water poured. Colt. Chair. Then call. Me. Walk. Soup. Read 2 pages on loud days, 3 on quiet. If a rumor knocks, ask for ID. If a threat smiles, ask for dates. I taped it where hands already go. The lamp gave its gentle tisk. The latch said its one honest word. The heater breathed like a patient animal who likes its job, somewhere. A clerk cued our order for the record. A board investigator sharpened a pencil. A lender practiced answering questions with nouns. And my son sat under fluorescent lights with strangers who intend to become less strange by naming what almost ate them. I turned off the lamp and let the room close like a competent book. No cliffhanger, just a schedule that will be here in the morning. The house no longer auditions for disaster. It holds, and that, for now, is the richest thing in it. Saturday opened like a plain envelope, unimpressed with drama. Perfect for stamps. I brewed coffee that could carry a checklist and set the banker's lamp to its kind green so the verbs could stand where they belong. The court order slept under glass like a calm animal. I read the weekend card I taped where hands already go. No tonight, no bridge, porch closed Sunday, and felt my lungs copy it. Harlan's 8:06 text arrived trimmed and tidy. Merchant coda complete. Boutique refunded, dealer reversed, jeweler wired, deputy available twos if any forgotten items appear. Ivy followed with a photo of a spreadsheet that looked like good manners. I labeled the refunds weather, clear, she wrote. If clouds return, we'll move them. Light joke 1. My printer, newly reformed, hummed 2 confirmation pages and then made a shy beep like a librarian allowing 1 applause. Colt stopped by at 9 with eyes that had done a small respectable amount of sleeping. He handed me a folded receipt and a photo. Rows of metal chairs, sneakers, a coffee urn, seated, 3, was written in his own hand. A little crooked, the good kind of human. They asked me to list the lies I tell myself before I gamble, he said. Turns out I have favorite sentences. He looked at the porch card and exhaled. I like that you tape the rules. It makes the room honest. I set water on the table like a ceremony that doesn't audition and told him he could sit a while without telling the day what to do. Elder wisdom, when you're rebuilding. Make your environment help you. Tape rules where hands already go. Place receipts under something with weight, and let chairs be guardians of verbs. At 10:30. A knock practiced punctuality. Peephole. Ria's mother. Pearls. Coral lipstick. Courtesy practiced like Pilates, holding a pie in a foil pan as if sweetness could notarize intent. Chain on, water poured. 10 minutes, I said, tapping the timer where guests can see consequence. She tried the lane called History. Ria's father left when she was 7, she said softly. She learned to push because life pushed her first. Then I hope she learns to steady, I answered. We're teaching that here. She adjusted the pie like it had feelings. Victor says you're making this adversarial. Paper is not adversarial, I said. It's an invitation for people to behave. The dignified goose honked at exactly 10. Light joke too, she jumped. Then pretended she'd always been a fan of geese. I wrote porch minutes while the pie cooled its intentions on the other side of the chain. At noon, soup, beans with lemon latte so flavor can stand up straight. Ivy texted, Lender board acknowledged complaint. Investigator assigned, Patel. 5 minutes later, Miss Patel herself called with a voice that believed in calendars. We're reviewing Mr. Hale's communications. Please forward any bridge deed language. I scanned Victor's glossy letter, the one whose font moisturizes verbs, and emailed it with the subject line, Signals and Teeth. Thank you, she said. We notice gloss when it hides hinges. Academic phrase of the day, signaling theory. The public argument that people use costly signals to prove quality. Predators counterfeit signals with borrowed gloss. Cure. Ask what it cost them to send the signal. In Victor's case, toner, not truth. I took a walk around the fence, rails like commas, helping a sentence stop showing off. The side hinge. Tightened yesterday, offered its new, lower voice. The rosemary lifted a quiet ribbon of sun into my hands. Quirky fact. Sidebar. Rosemary stores its perfume in tiny oil glands under each needle. A warm palm is enough to lift a weather of memory. Plants are better archivists than half the internet. Back inside, the community board coughed up a post about aging parents in crisis. Tone draped in the faux neutrality of a lab coat. 2 steady voices arrived in the comments like metronomes, dates, names, someone added. Documents? The thread became a museum of quiet. Light joke 3. My smart fridge flashed party mode available. I told it we only host Exhibit A parties now, and it dimmed like a chastened mascot. At 2. Harlan and Ivy dropped by with a binder I wanted to applaud, but didn't because we've rationed applause for soup and schedules. We've added a non-disparagement rider around the scholarship fund, Harlan said. So no one can launder gossip through generosity. Ivy placed a single plastic sleeve on top. Deputy, Lanes. It contained the porch rules, the supervised retrieval script, and a photo of the stove timer labeled honk each due process. Courts love lanes, Ivy said. So do nervous systems. We rehearsed Monday's final. Harlan would send the lender board the voicemail Victor left. Warm sandpaper, I can make your troubles light. I would continue to decline private conversations about Unity content. Colt would send seated 4 if the folding chairs did their job again. No speeches, Harlan repeated. Just one sentence. I rely on counsel and the documents my husband prepared. And sleep before yes, I added. He smiled. The judge likes that line. After they left, the doorbell tried modesty. Peephole, not Rhea, not her mother, Victor himself. Sunglasses reflecting my porch like a mirror that forgot truth. He stood far enough back to pretend courtesy and close enough to keep his voice silk. Chain on, water poured. "Mrs. Keene," he said, using the name that belongs on brass plates. "I help families through bottlenecks, sign a temporary deed, let liquidity do the heavy lifting." "A temporary drowning is still a drowning," I said. "All offers to counsel." He glanced at the timer and smiled. A man confident he can flirt with clocks. "I'd hate to be honest about your son's habits," he murmured. "I prefer to be generous." "We prefer receipts," I said. "Enjoy your generosity somewhere with worse lighting." The goose honked with the secular authority of a bell. I wrote porch minutes while his car practiced idling as intimidation and then drove away looking smaller than its adjectives. I made tea because ceremony is a glove that fits any weather. I filed Victor's visit under ammunition, audio. We'd captured enough of his diction through the door to be useful. Miss Patel replied, "Received, noted his language, interview next week." Harlan wrote 2 words I've learned to keep, well documented. Colt texted at 5 with a photo of the chairs and added a sentence that made my shoulders pick up courage. "They told me to laminate rule number 1, no urgency profit. I'm laminating." I pictured a small rectangle living in his wallet like a quiet anchor. Evening asked for small fixes. I tightened 1 more hinge. Taped a new card inside the cupboard. Tea before emails. No replies after 7. And put the locksmith's key envelope back into the dish shaped like an anchor, Richard's joke that has become a room. I wrote a letter to my future self on good paper. You did not shout. You scheduled. A board sharpened a pencil. A prosecutor wrote a sentence that will outlast feelings. Your son sat in a chair and told time the truth. Dated, stamp it, fold it, put it where hands already go. At 7:20, Rhea posted a photo of a latte with the caption, "Choosing peace." 2 steady replies. Dates, names. The thread sighed and went to bed early. Priscilla from town texted a lemon emoji and cut smaller than pride, which is now the town's sacred pastry. Before bed, I stood by the back door and let the rosemary forgive the day. I watered the pot so tomorrow would have a fragrance ready without asking. The house did its choir, latch saying its single honest syllable, lamp giving its gentle tisk, heater breathing like a diligent animal that enjoys its job. I set out Sunday's sign, porch closed, Sabbath for boundaries, because even rules need rest to avoid turning into weapons. Elder wisdom. Second serving. Stability isn't a finish line, it's a rhythm. Small protective habits repeated until they stop needing applause. Locks first, water next, paper filed, garden checked, soup salted to the corners, mercy after nouns. I turned off the lamp and listened to the click that sounds like a period placed where it belongs. The chain slid into its groove with its quiet pride, somewhere. Miss Patel underlined a phrase. A clerk cued a file, a lender practiced nouns for once. And my son sat in a room of folding chairs, a laminated rule warming his pocket like a compass. The house. No longer auditioning for disaster. Promised to hold us again tomorrow, as long as we keep giving it schedules to keep. Sunday put a finger to its lips, and the house obeyed. I flipped the porch sign to closed, Sabbath for boundaries. Set the banker's lamp to its kind green, and let the court order rest beneath it like a small animal that trusts my hands. The rosemary at the back steps sent up its polite ribbon of sun. The latch practiced its single honest syllable. The heater breathed like a reliable creature that likes its job. I brewed coffee that carries quiet without getting theatrical and reviewed the week pinned to the cupboard. Tuesday, sworn statements. Wednesday, board interview, we do not attend. Thursday, nothing public. Friday, rest. I wrote 2 short letters to future me, because dates soothe nerves better than adjectives. The first, today the porch stayed closed on purpose. You remembered that rules need Sabbaths too. The second, if noise returns, ask it for ID, then for a schedule. I stamped the corner with a small star sticker because adults deserve stickers when they behave. Harlan texted at 9:03 with the tone of paper finding its drawer. Monday, merchant coda filed to court. Tuesday, ADA, ready. Bring USB, binder, no embroidery, keep porch boring. Ivy added a photo of tomorrow's tab order, rainbow. She labeled it, but each tab title was pure utility. Voicemail, UCC, refunds, porch minutes, locks, light joke 1. My reform printer produced a test page and then made a single shy beep like a timid party horn. I told it we're a no confetti household and it dimmed. Chastened but proud. Colt texted a chair photo from the church basement. Seated, 4. With a caption that was only a timestamp. I wrote it in my notebook and drew a tiny railcar to link with the earlier cars, the train of small obediences lengthened by 1. He added, they taught me to say out loud, I don't do urgency anymore. I replied, practice saying it to the mirror that lies. He sent back a check mark, as if grammar had finally joined our side. I walked the fence. Rails lined up like commas that finally know where to stop. The side gate's hinge, yesterday's convert, stayed in its new alto. The rosemary forgave my doubts with scent, and I forgave the weak for being practical. Elder wisdom. Stability isn't a finish line. It's a metronome. Tiny protective habits repeated until you don't have to clap for them anymore. Locks first, water next. Paper filed, garden checked, soup salted to the corners, mercy. Always. After the nouns clock out. Back inside. I labeled the sworn folder like a nurse prepping trays. Thumb drive, blue eye blinking, sat in its dish under a brass bird that keeps small proofs from wandering. I copied my statement twice and read it out loud until it lost its wobble. No embroidery, dates, filings, refund confirmations, locksmith receipts, supervised retrieval notes. Victor's bridge deed gloss. The transcript where Richard said what needed saying. If someone tries to move you like furniture, play this. My voice stayed low on purpose, the way you speak in rooms that can move levers. Academic phrase of the day. Sunk cost fallacy. The public argument that the time or money you've already spent shouldn't trap your next choice. In families, it whispers. We've planned on this bridge for weeks, so we have to do it. We're answering with the dull hero of decisions, a fresh ledger, and a timer that honks. Near noon. The neighbor's terrier ambled by in a sweater striped like a cautious line chart. He performed his audit of the gate click, signed off with one dignified wag, and trotted on like the CFO of small dogs. Light joke too, I saluted him with a wooden spoon and he looked pleased to be understood. The community board attempted a soft rumor, elder transitions. Family tensions. The usual lab coat draped over gossip. 2 steady replies, dates, names, and the thread went to lie down without me. Priscilla from town messaged a screenshot of her own restraint. I typed documents and then baked lemon bars, cut smaller than pride. I sent a heart and a note. Put one in the freezer for the next time your courage needs a cold snack. Quirky fact. Sidebar, the classic banker's lamp, the green shade and brass stem we keep blessing, often hides a white interior so the light falls down on paper without shouting at the rest of the room. It's a tiny theology. Illuminate the work. Let the edges soften. I told the lamp as much, and it answered with a courteous tisk, as if to say, correct. Afternoon wore slippers. I polished the porch card, the kind of housekeeping that is really prayer, rewrote the 10-minute rule with a pen that refuses to leak, and added a line we've earned, no filming. The dignified goose on the stove got a quick battery check. He honked his secular amen and went back to being a kitchen bell that knows due process. Ria's mother appeared around too, with no pie this time. Just the coral lipstick and a face trying to learn boundaries without calling them rude. Chain on, water poured. "If you insist on statements," she said, "at least make them humane." "Humane is a schedule," I said. "We're giving the system nouns so it doesn't eat anyone." She tried the angle called history again, and I listened because listening helps me keep my side of the porch clean. Then the goose honked at exactly 10. Light joke 3. She flinched, gathered herself, and said, "Your timer is aggressive." "He's punctual," I said. "It's a condition of employment." I wrote porch minutes. Who, what. Nouns attempted. Nouns accepted, while syllables were still warm. At 3, Miss Patel called from the lender board. "Interview confirmed for Wednesday. We will advise you after," she said. "Do not engage with Mr. Hale directly." I told her about yesterday's doorstep audition. "Documented," she replied. Her voice has the ballast of people who sharpen pencils for a living and expect paper to behave. Harlan checked in with his version of confetti. "DA appreciates your structure. Bring the green-lamped copy set. We'll leave the adjectives at home. Also, Merchant Coda stamped into the record." I slid his text under the brass bird without printing it, because restraint is a muscle and I intend to tone it. I made beans with lemon late, bread that minds crumbs, and a pot of tea to convince the house that dinner is not a negotiation. I put one bowl in the fridge labeled Wednesday, because promises develop character when you give them containers. The cat, head of optics, supervised with half-lidded approval, then sat on the sworn folder like a courthouse statue. The only unscheduled noise came at dusk. A glossy envelope with Victor's name arrived, like Toner trying to cosplay as authority. I didn't open it. Ammunition. Paper. Then email to Miss Patel and Harlan. Received, unopened, preserved. The fridge, sensing the tone, offered party mode. I told it our celebration would be a small bowl of olives and an early bedtime. It dimmed like a chastened mascot. I walked the garden once more. Small steps to match a small life on purpose. The rails, my commas, held. The hinge kept its alto promise. The rosemary remembered the sun for me. I touched a sprig and decided that memory can be a shared chore between plant and person. Back inside. I taped tomorrow's card where hands already go. Monday. Confirm witness times. Print one more set, only if needed. Tea before emails. No tonight. Colt. Chair. Then call. Me. Read statement once out loud. Then put it away. Sleep before yes. Before bed. I practiced being a room that doesn't audition for disaster. I put the USB back in its dish. Laid the keys in the anchor bowl, Richard's steady joke, and turned the banker's lamp off like a period that knows grammar. The latch said its decent word. The chain slid into its groove with the quiet pride of a tool that's learned it doesn't have to argue to be believed. In the dark that followed, I pictured the conference room where the system will ask for nouns and I will hand them over. Dates, filings, refunds, locks, lanes. I pictured Colt's 8th little railcar pulling up to the platform of 6 o'clock. I pictured Miss Patel drawing a straight line through borrowed gloss. I pictured the judge's pen, already knowing where to land. Tomorrow will show up like a clipboard. We will greet it like people who own pens. Monday arrived in a sensible cardigan. No pattern. Pockets deep enough for pens and the kind of calm you can take into official rooms. I brewed coffee that could carry a rehearsal and slid the sworn folder beside the banker's lamp so the green could remind me where the work lives. The court order slept under that soft light like a creature convinced it was safe. The USB blinked its small blue eye from the dish under the brass bird as if to say, "I'm still here." Don't narrate me. I read tomorrow's card once. Confirm witness times. Bring binder. No embroidery. And then I let the house do its choir. Latch, saying its single decent syllable. Chain, practicing the slide we both trust. Heater breathing like a competent animal happy to be employed. I called Harlan at 9. He answered with the tone of a man who reads verbs for breakfast. ADA confirms 2 o'clock Tuesday, he said. Bring the binder set we like. UCC. Refunds, porch minutes, locks, voicemail transcript. I'll handle openings, moles. You'll supply nouns, not weather. Ivy chimed in from the background. I added a what not to say sheet. Top line, we never did anything. Paper did. Elder wisdom, when you're close to a lever. Let the lever see paper, not personality. It moves for weight, not charm. At 10, I tested the printer's reform. It produced 3 clean copies without a sigh and made a modest beep like a librarian permitting applause. Light joke 1. I told it had earned 1 paperclip as a treat. It whirred in the key of gratitude. I set the copies under separate brass birds so the proofs wouldn't wander when nerves did. Then I read my statement once out loud, slow enough for commas to keep up, and put it away, because practicing beyond the point of kindness makes words brittle. I walked the fence line to collect a small yes from the day. The rosemary threw a ribbon of sun into the air like a note passed in class, brief, fragrant, sufficient. The side hinge stayed in its new alto. The gate clicked its honest syllable and I answered it under my breath, grateful for tools that do not audition. Back inside. I taped a fresh card where hands already go. Tuesday. Sworn. Binder. USB. Keys. T before emails. Read statement once, no embroidery. Decline any Unity content. Sleep before yes, again after. Academic phrase of the day. Attentional control. The public argument that we can steer our focus with external cues so panic doesn't drive. In practice, green lamp for downlight, timer for visits, cards on cupboards, tea before screens, soup instead of speeches. Near noon, the porch bell made its patient sound. Peephole, Rhea, no sunglasses, a careful sweater, an expression that had practiced sincerity in front of a camera. Chain on, water poured. What if we do a private apology and skip the statements? She said, voice feathered for tranquility. A family video, gentle colors, no lawyers. I set the kitchen timer where she could see the numbers behave. All proposals to council, I said, and no filming. The timer, the dignified goose, ticked like a civil servant counting minutes. Rhea tried a narrower lane. If I told a story I can't back up, would you be merciful? Mercy comes after nouns, I answered, not instead of them. She nodded in a way that looked like acting lessons for humility. When the goose honked at 10, she flinched, then smoothed it into a flourish. Light joke 2. Our neighbor's terrier, CFO of small dogs, issued one polite bark as if to certify the end of public comment. I wrote porch minutes while the syllables were still warm and slid them under a brass bird labeled weather, calm. The community board tried to rehearse a rumor under elder transitions. 2 replies arrived like metronomes, dates, names, and the thread learned how to fold itself. Priscilla from town sent me a photo, lemon bars cut smaller than pride cooling on a rack. Practicing, she wrote. I sent a checkmark and the phrase, save 2 for later courage. Mid-afternoon, Miss Patel from the lender board called with the crisp mercy of someone who has met forms and chosen to love them anyway. Interview with Mr. Hale confirmed for Wednesday at 10, she said. Please continue to decline all direct contact. Forward all gloss. I forwarded yesterday's glossy envelope, unopened, cataloged, and she replied, received. We notice signaling when it hides teeth. Quirky fact. Sidebar, certified mail screen return receipt card, PS 3811. Physicalizes proof. Postal hands sign it. It travels back with a crease like a road map, and you can clip it to your file so memory is not required for justice to work. Cole texted at 4 with a picture of a laminated card. Rule number 1, no urgency profit, tucked behind his ID. They said portability matters, he wrote, so I made it fit my wallet. I imagined the little rectangle riding around like an anchor that had learned to hitchhike. He added the evening chair photo an hour later, seated, 5, and a caption that didn't try to be brave. Sat, listened, didn't talk. I printed the photo because heat-fixed ink sometimes persuades nerves more than pixels. Light joke 3. The printer purred like a cat that had found a responsible sunbeam and then made one modest beep. Confetti with manners. Harlan stopped by to hand me the do not say sheet in a travel-size calm. Tomorrow, we will let the record breathe, he said. Your job is to be exactly boring enough. Ivy ran through the tab order like a rehearsal pianist. Voicemail, UCC, refunds, porch minutes, locks, supervised retrieval, non-disparagement. When they ask what you want, she prompted. To keep the record about paper, I said. And she nodded like a conductor. Evening asked for soup that didn't make promises it couldn't keep. Beans, lemon late, bread that mines crumbs. I set a bowl aside labeled Wednesday, because kindness to tomorrow counts double the night before statements. I ironed 2 pillowcases, not because anyone would see them, but because smooth cotton convinces a mind to put its fists down. I placed the keys back in the dish shaped like an anchor, Richard's steady joke, and touched the brass that touches back by refusing to budge. Rhea texted one more attempt. Let's meet off the record. And I answered with weather. Orders attached, porch closed at dusk, council CC'd. The phone went face down not as a performance, but as gravity. Outside. Winter practice not being cruel. Inside. The lamp gave its gentle tisk, and the chain settled like a comma in the right place. Before bed. I walked the garden once more. The rails kept their commas in a row. The hinge kept its alto. The rosemary forgave the day again. I stood with the cool air in my throat and pictured the conference room where the ADA would ask for nouns. I pictured handing over the binder and the USB and the statement that doesn't audition. I pictured Colt's laminated rule sitting warm behind his ID while he says no to urgency in a room that understands the value of folding chairs and coffee urns. Back at the table, I placed tomorrow's binder under the banker's lamp so Green could bless paper. I taped the card one last time where hands already go. Tomorrow, binder, USB, water. Speak slowly and sentences. Mercy after nouns. No unity content. Sleep before yes. Then I turned off the lamp like a period placed with intention. The latch said its single honest word. The heater exhaled in the key of relief. The house, which has stopped auditioning for disaster, agreed to hold us through the night as long as we kept giving it schedules to keep. In that quiet. I let my breath match the chain's remembered slide and believed, without fireworks, that ordinary procedures would do what they always do when we let them, outlast noise. Tuesday wore a clipboard and a clock. I put the binder under the banker's lamp so the Green could bless the tabs once more. Voicemail, UCC, refunds, porch minutes, locks, supervised retrieval, non-disparagement, and slipped the small blue USB from its brass bird dish into the inside pocket of a cardigan that doesn't try to be impressive. The house sang its little choir, latch sang its single decent syllable, chain practicing the slide we both trust, heater breathing like a reliable animal that likes its job. And I added 1 peppermint to my bag because sweetness that waits is courage you can unwrap. At the DA's office, a clerk with soft shoes showed us to a conference room that looked trained not to gossip. Harlan placed the recorder in the middle of the table like a candle you don't have to watch. Ivy set the binder where hands could find it without hunting. The assistant DA asked for dates, not adjectives. We answered with nouns. Harlan read the voicemail transcript cleanly. I stated the day Victor offered a bridge deed and the hour the deputy's eyebrows enforced lanes. Ivy slid refund confirmations like quiet bricks. When the ADA wanted proof of the UCC filing that tried to grab household fixtures, the tab opened like a door that likes its hinges. "Thank you," she said. "Declined contact. We'll follow up after the lender board interview tomorrow." Elder wisdom. When you're in a room that can move levers, stop auditioning. Paper moves more weight than personality. On the walkout, I breathed the hallway air as if it were accountability itself, unperfumed, repeatable. Light joke 1. The elevator dinged in the polite key of C and held the door like it had passed a kindness exam. I thanked it out loud. And Ivy grinned because we have started thanking objects that behave. At home. The porch sign flipped to open for its small civil hour, chain on, water poured, timer visible. Rhea tried a gentler costume, hair pulled back, voice padded. If I admit to exaggerations, could we skip the public parts? Academic phrase of the day, I said softly. Restorative practice. The public argument that repair begins with naming harms, taking responsibility, and then repeating good behavior in daylight. It isn't a shortcut around consequences, it's a road with mile markers. The dignified goose on my stove ticked. Rhea's eyes searched for a camera that wasn't there. "You enjoy rules," she said, like it was a diagnosis. "No," I answered. "I enjoy sleep." The goose honked at minute 10. She flinched, then left with that small spin people do when they want the hallway to look like a runway. I wrote porch minutes while the syllables were still warm and filed them under weather, calm. Miss Patel called after lunch with ballast in her voice. "Interview with Mr. Hale tomorrow at 10 is confirmed," she said. "Forward any fresh contact attempts. Preserve unopened gloss." I forwarded a photo of yesterday's envelope sitting in ammunition, paper, still sealed. "Perfect," she said. "We notice signaling when it hides teeth. Quirky fact. Sidebar. Certified mail's green return receipt card is a tiny contract with geography. Postal hands sign it. It travels home creased like a map. And your file gets a proof that doesn't care about anyone's mood." I clipped 2 of them together with a gem paperclip because small metals doing their job calms me more than scented candles. Cole texted at 2:30. A photo of his laminated card. Rule number 1, no urgency profit, tucked behind his ID. "They said portability keeps promises," he wrote. I pictured the rectangle warming his wallet like an anchor that learned to carpool. At 6. The chair photo arrived. Seated, 6. Sneakers, coffee urn, fluorescent humility. Light joke 2. The printer purred its one modest beep, as if to say, approved. And for once, I let a machine have the last word. Afternoon wanted soup. I salted to the corners and set aside a bowl labeled Wednesday because kindness to tomorrow counts double before hearings. Harlan stopped by with a 1-page calm. "Tomorrow we do nothing," he said. "We stay home while Miss Patel does verbs. If anyone knocks with unity content, we practice the liturgy. Orders attached. Porch rules attached. Decline." Ivy refreshed the checklist on my cupboard card with tidy ink. Binder returned to dish. USB back home. Tea before emails. No replies after 7. Mercy after nouns. Academic phrase of the day earned a second whisper. Attentional control. Steer your focus with cues outside your skull so panic can't drive. In practice, green lamp for downlight, timer for visitors, cards where hands go, peppermint in pocket, soup instead of speeches. The community board coughed up a post titled Aging with Grace. A latte staged beside a paragraph about forgiveness that didn't contain a single date. 2 steady voices arrived. Dates, names, and the thread lost its appetite. Priscilla from town sent me a picture of lemon bars, cut smaller than pride, cooling under a tea towel. Practicing, she wrote. I sent back, save 2 for after the board calls. Late afternoon. A glossy courier envelope tried the door. I didn't open it. Ammunition, paper, photograph. Forward to Miss Patel in Harlan. Received, unopened, preserved. Harlan replied, textbook. Keep your porch a policy. Light joke 3. The smart fridge flashed, party mode available. I told it the only party allowed tonight was quiet confidence. And it dimmed like a mascot that's learning office etiquette. Dusk asked for a walk around the fence. The rails were commas, not barricades. The hinge kept its alto promise. Rosemary remembered the sun for me like a friend who takes good notes. I pressed a sprig between my fingers and thought about Richard's video. The way he patted the camera at the end as if he were telling a lighthouse goodnight. Back inside. I read my statement once, not to rehearse for applause, but to remind muscle how to place verbs. Then I put it away to keep it from getting brittle. Elder wisdom. Second serving, your peace is not in other people's apologies. It's in your procedures. Locks first, water next, paper filed, garden checked, soup salted, sleep before yes. If apologies arrive later, your calendar will have a chair ready. If they don't, your calendar still will. Night settled like a well-folded map. I slid the USB back into its dish under the brass bird, laid the keys in the anchor bowl, Richard's steady joke, and straightened the porch card as if aligning it could steady weather. The lamp gave its gentle tisk, the latch said its decent word. The chain slid into its groove with the quiet pride of a tool that no longer needs to explain itself. Before bed, I wrote 2 small letters to my later self and dated them like well-behaved mail. The first, today you spoke only nouns in a room built for verbs. The second, if tomorrow knocks with gloss. Remember that toner is cheap and consequences are not. Ask for dates, and let the clock do the teaching. I tuck them behind the cupboard card where my hands already go. Then I lay down, and in the twilight between chores and sleep, I pictured 3 rooms I trust. A board office where Miss Patel asks a lender for templates instead of adjectives. A church basement where strangers become less strange by saying, I don't do urgency anymore. And this kitchen, where a green shade sends light down onto paper and lets the edges rest. The house, which has stopped auditioning for disaster. Held me the way a good sentence holds meaning, without wobble, on time, in a key that lets breath believe it. Wednesday wore its quiet like a badge, nothing shiny, everything in order. I left the binder under the banker's lamp so the green could hold vigil while I did small domestic verbs on purpose. Wash a plate, water the rosemary, straighten the porch card. The house kept its choir, latch saying its one honest syllable, chain practicing the slide we both trust, heater breathing like a reliable animal that enjoys its job. I brewed coffee that could carry waiting without turning dramatic, and set a peppermint by the sink, because sweetness that pauses is the kind I can use. At 9:56, my phone buzzed once. Miss Patel. Interview beginning in 4. That was all. I imagined a room with fluorescent humility and a table that likes paper better than charm. I didn't pace. I folded 2 pillowcases because smooth cotton convinces the mind to put its fists down. Elder wisdom. When someone else is doing the heavy verbs, answer with tiny ones. Fold. Label. Pour. It keeps your hands faithful while your heart practices not auditioning. At 10:42, another message. Asked for clause templates. Received adjectives. Asked again. I could see it. The gentle persistence of a person who trusts forms more than theatrics. I salted beans to the corners and set a bowl aside labeled Thursday, because kindness to tomorrow counts double on interview days. Light joke 1. The printer, unbidden, showed me it still had paper as if to brag. I patted its plastic shoulder and told it pride is fine if you file on time. The porch opened at noon for its small civil hour. Chain on, water poured, timer visible. The terrier in the sweater patterned like a cautious line chart performed his audit of the gate click and signed off with one dignified wag as if to say our quarter still trends up. Ria's mother tried the bell, pearls arranged like an argument. 10 minutes, I said, showing the numbers. She offered a speech about forgiveness that didn't contain a single date. Academic phrase of the day. I replied softly, restorative practice. The public argument that repair begins with naming harms, accepting consequences, and then doing better in daylight. It's not a shortcut, I added. It's a road with mile markers. The dignified goose honked at minute 10. She flinched, recovered, and said, "Your timer is theatrical." "He's punctual," I said. "That's our arrangement." I wrote porch minutes while syllables were still warm and filed them under weather, calm. At 1:17, Miss Patel again. Licensing gaps documented. Bridge deed, pitch logged, follow-ups pending. Do not engage. I forwarded a photo of the unopened glossy envelope still lounging in ammunition. Paper like a bored actor waiting for a part that doesn't exist. "Preserve," she replied. I breathed in the rosemary by the back step. It breathed the sun back, untroubled by filings or fonts. Quirky fact. Sidebar, rosemary's oil cells live mostly on the underside of each needle. Tiny clear sacs. Warmth breaks their shyness. A soft brush releases a whole weather event your hands can wear. Ancient Greeks braided it into headbands, believing it improved memory. Maybe they were just writing their to-do list on their hair. By 2. The community board coughed up a post titled, "Aging with Grace, Choosing Love Over Law." Photo, latte art. Caption, neutral nouns auditioning for sainthood. 2 steady replies arrived on cue. Dates, names, and the thread went back to bed. Priscilla from town sent me a picture of lemon bars packaged for delivery, cut smaller than Pride, and a caption, "Practicing." I sent back a checkmark and the phrase, "If rumor knocks, ask for ID." At 3, Cole texted a photo of his wallet, laminated Rule No. 1, no urgency profit tucked behind his ID, and then the evening chair, seated 7. No caption this time. I printed it because heat-fixed ink sometimes persuades nerves better than pixels. Light joke 2. The printer made a single modest beep, which is confetti with a library card, and I decided it could stay redeemed one more day. Ria arrived alone at 4, hair pulled back into what I recognize as her humility headband. Chain on, water poured, timer visible. "I want to correct the record," she said. "Off the record." I showed her the porch card line that reads "No filming" and the one that says "Everything in writing to counsel." "I don't want the baby to be born into this," she whispered, letting the word baby try on judge's robes. "Then make tomorrow boring for him," I said, "by writing nouns, not moods." The goose announced minute 10, she startled. I apologized to etiquette and wrote porch minutes like a nurse labels vials. Date, time. The sentence that will matter later. Light joke 3. The neighbor terrier gave one approving bark as if to certify the end of public comment. Even auditors need ritual. The day's real music arrived at 5:06, Miss Patel's full stop. Prelim, unlicensed advice likely, consumer harm inquiry open, notice drafted, preserve everything, decline contact. Harlan texted right behind, "Board moving, DA pleased, tomorrow you do nothing public, rest, let the nouns work." Ivy sent a photo of a small stack of green return receipt cards, the tiny poems of bureaucracy, and wrote, "These are coming home to us. Clip, file, breathe." Academic phrase of the day. A second little bell, because Wednesdays get two. Signaling theory. The public argument that people send costly signals to indicate quality. Predators counterfeit with borrowed gloss. Cure. Ask what it cost. With Victor. The answer was toner, not compliance. I made soup, beans with lemon latte so the flavor can stand on its own feet, and set out 2 bowls in case anyone needed to feel like a room could be kind without drama. The banker's lamp threw down light only where the spoons mattered and left the edges soft. I set the court order beneath it again to let verbs rest under a color that believes in paperwork. Continues, enjoins, reverts. I added a card to the cupboard. Thursday, no public. Tea before emails. Walk. Read 2 pages on loud days. 3 on quiet. After dinner. I did the smallest honest chores. Taped 1 corner of the porch card so it wouldn't curl into whimsy. Tightened the side hinge a 1/4 turn so it would keep its alto oath. Watered the rosemary so tomorrow's heir would have a memory ready without asking. I laid the keys back in the dish shaped like an anchor, Richard's steady joke, and touched the brass that touches back by refusing to budge. Ria texted one more attempt. What if I post a correction that implicates nobody? I replied with weather, court orders attached, board inquiry open, all statements to counsel, no filming, sleep before yes. Then I put the phone face down, not for theater, but for gravity, outside. Winter remembered how to be polite, inside. The chain slid into its groove with a small, competent sigh. I wrote a letter to my later self, dated, like mail that plans to arrive. Today, you did not audition for justice. You fed it documents and let it ask its own questions. You chose tiny verbs while the big ones were spoken in other rooms. Your son sat in a chair, a board sharpened a pencil. A rumor ran out of adjectives. You watered rosemary because the future deserves a smell. A last ping at 8 from Ms. Patel. Notice of violation sent. Counsel engaged. Do not respond. I printed it, not to worship paper, but to calm the animal in my chest that loves stamps. I clipped the page with a gem paperclip, the small steel oval that once helped a country resist silence, and filed it where my hand already knows to reach. The cat, head of optics, approved the angle with a blink. Before bed. I spoke my name once like a contract and read 1 paragraph of something that doesn't need me to fix it. The lamp gave its gentle tisk. The latch said its single honest word. The heater breathed like a competent animal glad for a job. I turned out the light and pictured 3 steady rooms. A board office where borrowed gloss met questions that asked for invoices. A church basement where "I don't do urgency anymore" became a sentence with muscle. And this kitchen, where a green shade keeps the work honest and lets the edges rest. We are not cured. We are scheduled. And in this house, which has stopped auditioning for disaster, schedule is the color of peace. Thursday decided to be useful instead of dramatic. I left the binder under the banker's lamp so the green could do its modest blessing while I did small verbs that keep a day from inventing trouble. Fold 2 towels. Water the rosemary. Straighten the porch card so its corners didn't curl into whimsy. The house sang its usual choir, latch saying its 1 honest syllable. Chain practicing the slide we both trust. Heater breathing like a competent animal that likes its job. I brewed coffee that could carry a phone call without wobbling and checked the card on the cupboard. No public. Tea before emails. Walk. Read 2 pages on loud days. 3 on quiet. At 9:15. Miss Patel called. Her voice arrived with ballast and enough quiet to stack things on. Notice of violation served, she said. Licensing gaps confirmed. Consumer harm inquiry open. We advise Mr. Hale to cease contact. If he knocks, call us. Keep preserving." "We like preserving," I said, looking at the brass bird that keeps little proofs from wandering. She added, "Thank you for forwarding gloss unopened. Signaling matters." Then she did the nicest thing a system can do. Hung up because there was nothing left to perform. Elder wisdom: when help finally moves in your direction. Do not add choreography. Set the table. Hand over paper. Keep the kettle on and stop auditioning. Late morning, Harlan texted, "ADA pleased. Subpoenas drafted. You do nothing public. Let boredom do its work." Ivy followed with a photo of 3 green return receipt cards fanned like sensible feathers. "Clip, file, breathe," she wrote. Light joke 1. My reform printer purred one modest beep as if to request a gold star. I awarded it a paperclip and told it to pace itself. The porch opened for its small civil hour. Chain on, water poured, timer visible. Rhea came alone. Hair pulled back into her humility headband. Voice whispery with good intentions, trying on a jacket. "If I post a correction," she asked, "could it not name anyone?" Academic phrase of the day. I said softly, "Restorative practice. The public argument that repair begins with naming harms, accepting consequences, and then repeating good behavior in daylight. Corrections without nouns are just captions," I added. The dignified goose on the stove counted down in polite numbers. She glanced at the timer like a student eyeing a clock. "I didn't think rules could feel like kindness," she said. And for a second, the performance forgot its lines. The goose honked at 10. She startled, smoothed, and left without a spin. I wrote porch minutes while syllables were still warm and filed them under weather, calm. Quirky fact. Sidebar. The gem paperclip's shape, those twin ovals, keeps paper flat because the wire's spring spreads tension over 2 loops. That tiny physics is why your stack doesn't curl. I clipped today's minutes with 1 and felt smarter than scented candles. At 1. The community board tried one more latte with lesson post titled "Aging with Grace, Not Quartz." 2 steady replies, dates, names, and the thread slunk back into its cup. Priscilla from town texted a photo of lemon bars, cut smaller than pride, labeled "practicing." I replied with our shared benediction, "If rumor knocks, ask for ID." Colt arrived just before 2, jacket aligned with his shoulders like a truce had found him. He set a photo on the table. Last night's chairs, sneakers, coffee urn, seated, ate. And something new, a laminated wallet card behind his ID. Rule number 1, no urgency profit. "The group had me say it aloud to a mirror," he said. "The mirror tried to lie. I said it again." "We made tea because ceremony lets feelings sit without needing applause," he asked. "What if forgiveness never gets cinematic?" "Then we accept its accurate budget," I said. "Forgiveness is more like beans than fireworks." Light joke 2, the fridge flashed "Party mode available." I told it the only party tonight involved a kettle and 2 plain mugs. And it dimmed like a mascot learning office etiquette. At 3. A glossy courier envelope tried the door. Ammunition, paper, photo, forward to Miss Patel in Harlan, preserved unopened. Harlan replied, "Textbook. The quieter you are, the faster their adjectives run out." The terrier in the sweater, patterned like a cautious line chart, wandered by, audited the gate click, and gave 1 dignified wag as if to certify the quarter. I saluted the CFO of Small Dogs with a wooden spoon that doubles as our parliament's mace. Evening requested beans with lemon latte so flavor could stand on its own feet, and bread that minded crumbs. I set aside a bowl labeled Friday because kindness to tomorrow keeps lawyers from narrating your dinner. The banker's lamp pushed its green down onto the stamped order, continues, reverts, enjoins, enforces, and let the edges of the room soften like a shoulder you can trust. I ironed 2 pillowcases because smooth cotton convinces anxiety to sit up straight. The keys went back into the dish shaped like an anchor, Richard's steady joke that has become a room. Academic phrase of the day. Encore. Attentional control. Steer your focus with cues outside your skull so panic can't drive. In practice, cards where hands go, green lamp for downlight, timer for visits, peppermint in pocket, soup instead of speeches, and writing down exactly what worked so you can do it again after your brave gets tired. At 6, Cole texted the chair photo, seated, 9. No caption, just the chair, exactly as important as it is. Light joke 3, the printer, confident in its redemption arc, made one demure beep and then held its tongue like a reformed exclamation point. Night came the way good endings do, without a speech. I walked the fence line and counted rails like commas, finally in the right places. The hinge kept its alto oath. The rosemary breathed the sun back to me because memory can be outsourced to plants with better filing systems. Back inside. I taped the aftercare card to the cupboard. Aftercare, every day. No tonight. No bridge. Porch, chain on, water poured, timer visible. Mercy after nouns. Colt, chair, then call. Me, walk, soup. Read 2 pages on loud days, 3 on quiet. If a rumor knocks, ask for ID. If a threat smiles, ask for dates. I turned the lamp off like a period set where it belongs. The latch said its single decent word. The chain slid into its groove with the quiet pride of a tool that no longer needs to explain itself. Somewhere. A board docketed a notice. A prosecutor arranged a sentence that would outlast feelings. A lender studied what happens when toner meets verbs. And my son sat in a circle of chairs under fluorescent humility and chose not to audition for urgency. The house, which has stopped auditioning for disaster, promised to hold us tomorrow, as long as we keep giving it schedules to keep. Tonight, the rooms learn their softer shapes again, green light falling only where work asks for it, the latch rehearsing the single syllable it knows, the heater breathing in a steady key that keeps its promises without asking for thanks. Paper sleeps beneath brass birds so small proofs do not wander. Envelopes lie closed in the drawer labeled ammunition. Paper with their gloss preserved as a map of what not to answer. And the porch card, tidied at the corners, keeps company with a timer that honks just enough to make boundaries feel like manners. The rosemary at the back step lifts a thread of sunlight into the dark. A plant's way of keeping the future perfumed for people who have decided to live small on purpose. Systems have taken their places, orders enjoined, locks changed, refunds logged, lanes enforced by eyebrows that know how to teach courtesy. The rumor mill, denied adjectives, has learned to ask for dates and names, and most of its appetite has gone to bed. A lender's gloss met a desk that prefers verbs. A board sharpened a pencil and said no to signals that cost only toner. A son carries a laminated card behind his ID, and a folding chair receives him nightly. The photos line up like small, obedient railcars pulling something heavier than pride to a safer station. Tomorrow will not audition for triumph. It will be a schedule, walk the fence, soup salted to the corners, tea before emails, a letter to the later self with a stamp that proves the day happened, and maybe a short train to the sea and back, just to practice leaving and returning well. Mercy arrives after the nouns have worked. Forgiveness keeps a modest budget, and sleep. Finally, agrees to sit in a sturdy chair while the house holds on our behalf.